What's going on, my friends? Hope you're having a good day. I'm coming here live to talk about something that's been really obvious over the past year, and I'm just blown away that it's still going on. So I'm gonna wait about 10 seconds till everyone comes in. I'm here to talk about how desperate Washington Post is to push the fake news about Trump and Russia to the masses. And I'm gonna explain exactly why, and please follow along. Please do your own research and Google these things that I'm talking about, because it's not a conspiracy theory. It's out there. They just prey on you for being too stupid to figure it out. So this all started 24 hours after Hillary Clinton lost the election. It's out there. Google 24 hours after Hillary Clinton lost the election, John Podesta, Russia hack story. 24 hours after her election, her campaign manager, John Podesta, came up with the theory. He's like, you know what? We're going to lie and tell the public that Russia hacked the election. This is 24 hours after the election. They already had this story. They made it up. So they've been nonstop just desperately trying to push it to the American people, to lie to the American people. You can Google this. Google 24 hours after the election. They made this whole Russia hack up. They made it up. And then they followed it up. Notice that disgraced campaign manager, John Podesta, you know, everybody knows the truth about him, but everyone's afraid to say it because they'll send their lawyers at you if you do say it. So John Podesta is a contributing writer at the Washington Post. They had him come on and be like, hey, nobody likes you, but we're going to bring you on as a contributing writer. That's because Jeff Bezos of Amazon, now the second richest person in the world, owns the Washington Post, and he's clearly in with Hillary and doesn't like Trump. So they bring John Podesta, the person who literally created the fake story about Russia, they bring him on as a contributing writer. And they pushed one of the biggest fake news stories of last year. It got debunked by Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Glenn Greenwald. It got debunked by Ben Swann, who now disappeared from social media. It was the Russia hack story about an electrical grid in Vermont. They pushed the story. It got millions of shares. Everybody was sharing it. They said, oh my God, they hacked an electrical grid in Vermont. Turns out that the entire story was completely fake. You can Google it. They had to retract after it got millions of shares and people said, Russia hacked the election, Russia hacked. It literally never happened. Washington Post made this entire fake news story. And how they do it, they say, allegedly, according U.S. officials, people in the intelligence communities, yet they never name a single person, because James Clapper, the head of all the intelligence agencies, has said multiple times in court and on camera, we don't have any evidence of the Trump campaign colluding with Russia, because it's a whole made-up story that they literally scripted 24 hours after Hillary Clinton lost. But they own a lot of these news publications. Why do you think John Podesta is a contributing writer to the Washington Post when he was the one who came up with the Russia fake news story? So today, of course, another thing, it's like, we have evidence that Trump's campaign officials, U.S. officials said, allegedly, you know, it's like, how many times are they going to lie to people? They just keep lying. And you have crazy, insane conspiracy theorists like Louise Mensch on social media, literally getting tens of thousands of retweets on stuff that's completely 100% inaccurate and false. She said, oh, look, we have it now. We have Trump's impeachment. We got it. It's going through the FISA court. Meanwhile, all of the credible journalists in the United States, they said, that's not how impeachments work. Impeachments don't go through the FISA court. So she's literally blasting fake news. But people are so stupid in America that they hate Donald Trump so much that they believe anything anti-Trump. That's how dumb everyone is. I'm not saying you have to love everything Trump does. I'm very critical of many things he does. Like I posted today about Jeff Sessions and the war on drugs. But to be so stupid to just believe anything, like I could be like, yeah, Trump's getting impeached. It's going through the FISA court, and then it's going to go through McDonald's, and then they're going to pass it to Burger King and Wendy's. I could get 100,000 retweets on Twitter because everybody hates Trump so much. It's like, oh my God, he's going to get impeached through the FISA court because Russia, because John Podesta told me, and Washington Post, even though they told you it was a fake, made-up narrative. So, of course, after the FBI director's fired, the same FBI director that Democrats and Rosie O'Donnell and all these creeps have been begging for, please fire James Comey. He's the reason that we lost the election. You know, what does he work for, Russia? So Trump fires him, and now all of a sudden all the, you know, lunatics like Rosie O'Donnell, they're like, oh my God, Trump needs to be impeached because he fired the person we've been asking him to fire for the last 3 months. Meanwhile, the next day he meets with a Russian ambassador. Not surprising because he's, let me think. I'm trying to think. What is he? Oh, the president of the United States. So it's not out of character for him to literally meet with all of the world leaders Meanwhile, he's trying to have a phone call with Kim Jong-un, and people like CNN are trying to block him. Be like, don't talk to Kim Jong-un, don't talk to Vladimir Putin. Only we're allowed to talk to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. We're allowed to sell uranium to them, do $500,000 speeches, but no one else could talk to them, because if everybody starts communicating, they're going to find out that the story we've been told over the past 20 years has been a complete lie. And they're freaking out because Trump's in president. They don't want him there, and he's pretty much slashing through all of their lies. He's like, the mainstream media is fake, Washington Post is fake, New York Times is fake news, CNN is fake news, MSNBC is fake news, and they are completely fake news. It's 100% fabricated. They're literally taking fake stories hatched by Hillary's campaign manager, John Podesta, and they're pushing this out. Meanwhile, they pretend like child sex trafficking doesn't exist. There's all these creepy code names in the Podesta emails, talking about all these potentially creepy things. And what do? I'm not saying it's real. I'm not going to, because I don't want their lawyers to come after me like they do everybody, but I'm not saying it's real, but did they debunk it? Did they say, oh, this is what the code meant? No, they just pretend like the story doesn't exist. They're like, anybody who says Pizzagate, is deleted from social media, and they're crazy, this and that. Meanwhile, there's pedophiles getting arrested left and right. There's between 400 and 500,000 people on the lower end, 400,000, 500,000 kids that go disappeared, missing in the United States. Dr. Phil did an episode on sex trafficking and child traffickers who have been, enslaved by politicians, famous and rich people, going to sporting events, literally like 2 and 3 year olds just getting molested by, politicians and people. And I'm not saying, I don't know, I'm not saying which politicians are doing it. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just saying they pretend like all of this stuff doesn't exist. They won't talk about it because they don't care that 2-year-olds are getting raped. That's not a big deal to the Washington Post and the New York Times. They're actively trying to cover that stuff up. They're like, well, that doesn't exist. And the Russia hack story, it's like, it's pathetic. It's really, really, really pathetic that they don't want to save hundreds of thousands of kids getting raped and molested that are under the age of 5 years old. Yet they're willingly pushing this Russia story, which was hatched by John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. So this is some really, really terrible stuff, and this is why I support the president, because I'm weighing out my options. I don't like the war on drugs. I don't like a lot of the things he's doing, but I think people are making a mistake of how terrible and how corrupt the Democratic Party and the Democratic National Committee truly are. It's some really disgusting, sick things, and I'm not here pointing the finger at anyone. I'm not saying, anybody's doing this and that, but what I will say strongly is that this Russia story was created 24 hours after the election. That proof came out. Hillary's like, oh, who told me? I got to find out who, probably so she could try to kill them or silence them. And now they're still pushing it. Even though that evidence is out there, literally, that whole story was hatched, they're pushing it through the Washington Post because that's a news organization that they own. John Podesta works for that news organization, and people seem to think they're a credible news organization. They pretend democracy dies in darkness. Meanwhile, them and the New York Times were the ones who forced us into Iraq. They've been lying to people for years. I call them, New York Times, CNN, I call them war media. I don't even consider them mainstream media. They're war media, WAR media, war media, because they pretend like they're pro this, pro that, social justice, environment, and, well, not even environment. They don't even care about the environment, unfortunately, but they pretend like they're all these things. Meanwhile, they just somehow connive people and convince them to go to war, like go to Iraq, go to here, bomb Syria, put Hillary Clinton in so she could bomb Syria. Oh my God, the only thing Trump has done good so far is bomb Syria. It's not good that he created hundreds of thousands of jobs. Washington Post doesn't care about that, but they like when he bombed Syria. That's their favorite thing. Like, yes, bomb Syria, yes, yes, yes. So, I mean, it's just getting pathetic at this point. It's like, how many fake stories are they going to put out? It's an anonymous source. It's a U.S. official. We don't know their name, but possibly, allegedly, they might have talked to, well, he talked to Russia, like he talked to the Russian ambassador, and he told them classified information. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton leaked tens of thousands of classified emails and had them on a private server, and they acted like that wasn't a big deal. All of these emails came out showing all of this corrupt, disgusting stuff, and they act like that's not a big deal. And they don't even shut it down. They don't even say, with some of the conspiracy theories that are going around, which if you watch any videos on them, it's not damning, but I mean, you put one and one and one and one and one and one together, there's literally more evidence on the, John Podesta, I don't even want to say it because they'll probably send lawyers at me, conspiracy. There's 20 times more evidence of that than there is of the Trump-Russia thing, but none of the mainstream media will talk about that because they just want to keep having kids getting molested and raped. Apparently, I guess that's their prerogative. Like me, that's disgusting to me. So I would want to save a bunch of kids' lives from being sexually molested by politicians and wealthy people around the world. But apparently, these news organizations, I'm not saying that you have to say that it's politicians that are doing it. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. God bless Hillary Clinton and John Podesta. I think you guys are amazing people, but are you going to pretend like it doesn't exist? Because with a simple Google search, you can see how many kids are disappearing. Apparently, the Madeleine McCann story was on Australia. They had a 60 Minutes and released a lot of information on that. Dr. Phil has them on. You have Ashton Kutcher talking about it. This is mainstream news now, and you have 3 news sources that doesn't want to talk about it. Not only will they not debunk it, like, oh, no, these people aren't pedophiles. That would be fine, but they're like, it doesn't even exist. Like, there's nothing of the sort. I didn't do that. But the rest, look at Russia. Look at Russia. Meanwhile, they're not talking about the DNC lawsuit because the Democratic National Committee rigged the election on top of already having the election rigged with superdelegates. Like, the superdelegates and the mainstream media manipulation, that's not enough rigging. That's like tilting the scales that way. They had to go even further and rig it even more. But Bernie Sanders won't tell you that. He'll talk about Russia. Bernie Sanders won't tell you the truth about the Washington Post, but he'll talk about Russia. It's a lot of manipulation going on, a lot of lies, and quite frankly, me, like a lot of people, I'm sick of it. Donald Trump won the election. There's a lot of things that he's doing that need to be called out and questioned, 100% absolutely, but we can't even dive through the bad stuff that Donald Trump's doing because there's so much lies. People lie about every single thing he does, so when it does come time to talk about something that's very, very serious that Donald Trump does, that we can't even do it because you have lunatics like Louis Mensch, Rosie O'Donnell, a bunch of congressional people, celebrities, salivating over this Trump-Russia story, and it's ridiculous. There's nobody that has bigger connections than other politicians to Russia. It's been a year of investigating. Why doesn't the FBI investigate some of these child traffickers? Why doesn't the FBI and intelligence agencies investigate, other things that are going to save lives? It's like they've been trying for a year and they haven't found anything. So it's really, really getting obnoxious. If I see one more article that says U.S. officials allegedly, possibly, like he might have sent, they're desperate to find Trump-Russia stuff. And to sum it up, it's not random. It's not by chance. It's because they own the Washington Post. And it's a fake news organization that's basically the hub of intelligence communities, politicians, Democratic Party, and anybody who's willing to go to war for them. So that's my analysis on it. Much love to the Washington Post. Much love to New York Times. Much love to you. Much love to Democrats, Republicans, progressives, conservatives, free thinkers, libertarians, Green Party. I'm not here to tell you how to think, but I want the truth to be told. Donald Trump's not trying to stop journalists. Obama was prosecuting journalists. Look at what Julian Assange, he'll tell you. It was Obama who was prosecuting journalists. Trump's not trying to shut down the freedom of speech. He's trying to get the truth out there. I'm sure he doesn't even care that people oppose him. He cares, just like I care. I didn't even vote for him, but oppose him with facts, oppose him with logic, oppose him with truth. The mainstream media is just an all-out shill fest of complete lies and fabrication and stories that they scripted behind closed doors to try to regain power in the government, and everybody eats it up because they hate him so much. So I think we need to come to our senses and be a little more honest, because we're never going to help each other. We're not going to stop the war on drugs. We're not going to stop, bad health care if we can't tell the truth about the health care, if we can't tell the truth about the Russia story, because now no one's talking about, Jeff Sessions' new bill, like 150th that people are talking about of Russia, and that's something that should be debated. That should be an open conversation back and forth so we can make sure that, real criminals stay in jail and other people don't. So much love. I mean, how many times is the Washington Post going to push fake news? How many times is CNN and these celebrities going to eat up a bunch of conspiracy theories and then take real news and tell you that that's a conspiracy theory and that you can't talk about it? Anybody who talks about it, Ben Swann, Alex Jones, anybody, it's like they get shut down. And I just don't think it's very fair. And I think a lot of people feel that way as well. So I'm out for today. Much love. Have a good day.